Which I suppose is different. So it's not just getting what we're going back to the league, it's another idea. It's 2 years getting no membership. It's just a thing called when we get some well, that's close to no computation. Yes, I can. Well, okay, well, I think it is just I think they should be one.
Yeah, but yeah.
Can you check that it's actually streaming? It should be a picture of that at the moment. No sound. The link is on our website. Sorry,
I don't have my shortcut on the phone.
It's greenshropshirt.org.uk. Not seen Claire yet, has she? There should be an events page there somewhere. I think it's the only event listed. Scroll down a bit. There you go, click on that. And then there should be a link on that page about halfway down under the speakers. That's it. You've got to sign your life away first. Yes, you get to see it.
There is.
Yes. I'm basically and are they really struggling with because
Oh, right, okay, well, I just switched it on. Yeah, that's probably right. Yeah, that's fine. Speaker mics on this.
Hello, man. Hi, how are you? Good, thanks.
How are you?
Yeah, they're fine.
We're doing a live stream, if that's all right, of your speech this morning.
Yeah, I was notified.
You were notified.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Sure, it'll be fine.
I wonder if you'd mind wearing a mic, though?
Oh, God.
A wireless mic? It's just a clip-on thing.
Cool.
Pop it anywhere.
Yeah.
That's perfect, thanks.
Perfect.
Now, I've only got the one mic, and Tom is going to be speaking afterwards, so when you've finished,
Yeah.
you can hand it to Tom.
And when am I speaking, is it?
I think you're on first, actually.
Which is what now?
2:30, actually.
That's what I was hoping. Yeah, that was good. I was just thinking, is that when...
scheduled time, anyway.
Fantastic, yeah. Brilliant.
Thanks.
Smashing.
sewage. What I was going to suggest,
Trent aren't doing it and nobody's doing it, and so they're and it's all like quite new, so there was no system in place. But essentially, obviously, what you do, you have to standardise everything, so everyone's testing for the same things in the same way, and the results are all going into the same data. So that seems like, I think it was Cardiff University and the Y and the Rivers Trust did a project on the Y, and so they have a data, they're collecting data, and they've got a sort of standardised procedure for doing the testing. So we're doing that, and we're going to be starting soon. The water testing kit's on order, the crew's all organised, we know what we're doing. We're coordinating with other people who are doing that around the town, so we're doing that. And then the other thing is, like, we've worked out that the only way to get the Environment Agency or Severn Trent to do anything about this, though, is to gain bathing water status. And so in order to actually get any action, which is like pretty horrific in itself, basically, because it's like, you know what, if my dog pooed on the pig trough and someone saw me not clear it up, then I'd be getting a fine and all kinds of stuff. And yet, the water company, I pay 40, well, I don't anymore, we've stopped paying half our bill, but we were paying 48% of our water bill for them to not pump sewage onto a local footpath, which actually is why I think partly Severn Trent are probably quite focused on Shrewsbury, because they know that we know that they know that it's going on a footpath, and they've done nothing about it for years, which is, I think that's particularly shocking. I don't know for sure, but I don't know if there's many parts of the country where that's actually happening. So I think that is probably part of the reason they're quite focused on Shrewsbury. So in order to do the bathing water status, it's an awful lot of work. It's 18 months of work. You have to be doing water testing. So we've got the water testing going on nearly. And then, so you have to be doing the water testing. There's a big application you have to fill in. And then you have to survey people who are using the river for swimming and paddleboarding and kayaking and rowing and whatever they do, well, I used to swim in the river, but I don't anymore. But anyway, so those brave people who still go in the river, we're going to have to interview them. So we've got to choose some beaches or whatever. But we're going to be getting a lot of help from the Surfers Against Sewage. I mean, that's the thing, there's a lot of help available. And the thing is, it's like, in order to gain bathing water status, you don't have to have clean water. So it's not like we have to clean the water up before you get bathing water status. We could get allocated bathing water status, but we would be allocated poor. So because the water quality would be poor. So we've got bathing water status, but the water quality is poor. So we'd be doing it as essentially a campaigning thing, because this is what we're a little worried about, that people might think if we get bathing water status, we've solved the problem, but really we haven't. So it's about campaigning. So it's like we've got bathing water status. What's the state of headline news on the Shropshire Star? Shrewsbury's bathing water is poor quality. So that's what we're kind of looking for. And then that's going to force the Environment Agency to take action, as Severn Trent will have to do something. And I mean, what can they do? It's like get rid of all the cars that are parked on the streets of Shrewsbury, replace them with occasional electric ones that everyone share. That's my dream, and yours, I'm sure. So that you could free up car parking spaces to plant gardens, so you could water runoff could be soaked. Get people to soakaways, that's the one. And so get people, because there's lots of people who've got you get your plumb around, and sometimes it's easier for them to plumb the shower into the wrong system. So there's lots of misconnections going on around the town. So those could be sorted out. So there's lots of measures that could, because I mean, sorting out the whole problem is such a massive job, because it's not even that it's so expensive, it's that it's been massively disruptive. It would be every street dug up, so it caused traffic chaos. It will be a nightmare. But there's lots of sort of, and take a really long time, by which time, if we're not careful, the river will be dead. And then we'll be dead, because we depend on the water as much as the fish, don't we? So there's lots of things we can do in the short term, really, and it's about sort of communicating about that and just carrying on making a fuss, I suppose. But so we're doing, making a fuss. We've got a meeting, or the town council are organising a public meeting, so hopefully that'll be quite a big meeting and quite informative. So we're working with them. doing the water testing, get the bathing water status, carry on making a fuss, making a noise, and it's all we can do, isn't it? And so I suppose, any questions? Because, I mean, obviously the more people we can get involved, but it's just, yeah, holding it all together, isn't it, really? But that's the thing, everyone wants to get involved. Because this is, I mean, I think it's like sewage is the great gateway drug for environmental activism, really, is how I'm looking at it. Because, I mean, it's like, because there was, I think it must have been the March or something, but there was something in the Shropshire Star, and some of my friends were on the Facebook page, and, you know, the Shropshire Star Facebook page gets quite a lot of people saying, like with the road, it's like, just get it built, or complete the ring road. And there were a few people who were trying to say, well, just let them keep, they couldn't even say, let them keep pumping sewage into the river. It's like, nobody can even say it, even on the Shropshire Star Facebook page, they can't actually sort of bring themselves. So it's like, you really, I mean, I reckon Jacob Rees-Mogg and the Bank of Oman or whatever, who own half the shares in the water companies or something, are probably the ones who have got a vested interest in keeping us pumping sewage, but that, nearly everyone hasn't. And so it is, I mean, the whole country's been alive with this. It's been the front page news all over the summer, because not only are they not really, the water companies aren't really looking after the sewage, they're not looking after our water supply either. So it is kind of, and people are waking up to it, aren't they? But at the same time, I mean, I think we need to work with the water companies as well. We're all in it together, aren't we? So we've all got to work together. And I mean, and the higher echelons are obviously, you know, getting a lot of money. And the reason they're getting a lot of money is because they're really good at getting companies to siphon lots of money to shareholders and not actually sweat assets, which is why Liv Garfield gets paid so massively much, I think. But most of the people who work for Severn Trent, they don't want the rivers to die, do they? So, you know, we've got to all work together on it, really, haven't we? So, yeah, and do what we can. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Don't look at that for now. I'll come in a minute. I know a lot of you already. So I'm Tom Hayek. I've been a member of Shrewsbury and Green Party for, I don't know, about 7 years or something. And I've been asked to talk to you about basically what I've been doing for the last year or so, which is related but not actually Green Party activity. And that's been working with my parish council to help them to move forward with how they think of the environment, both locally and a bit further afield, and helping them along a bit of a journey. So this all started, like all stories seem to nowadays, you say it started in lockdown, which is the same here. So walking around the village that I just moved to, I got to meet one of the parish councillors, as they were walking one loop and I was kind of going the other direction, and we kind of chatted quite a lot, and he was really interested in the environment and started to ask me what more we could do when I said that I'm an ecologist by training, and mentioned that I've been involved with the Green Party as well, and that sort of culminated about 15 months ago when he sort of nobbled me in the village and said, oh, I'm thinking of recommending that we declare a climate emergency as a parish council. What do you think? And I said, well, I think you're almost there. I said, if you make it a climate and nature emergency, I think that would be absolutely fantastic, as a sort of example to people in the village of how serious we need to start taking these issues. So he took that back to the parish council and proposed it at the AGM exactly 12 months ago. I couldn't make that AGM as a resident. I was away, and when I got the minutes, it said unanimously declared a climate and nature emergency, unanimously decided we need a climate and nature champion in the parish. We've got someone we think will do it. So that was the first I knew that that was probably going to be the next step. So slightly arm at my back, but of course very pleased to take that that role on. So I then started attending parish council meetings, and they were saying, well, what next? What do we do with this now? We've declared a climate and nature emergency. Well, there's no point in doing that unless we do something with it, which was great to hear that that was coming from them. So I said, well, we need a plan. And I said, the next thing, what would be great is if we could get a climate and nature plan for the parish that will enable you as councillors to back up the words that you've said at that one AGM with actions. And so, well, there was a stage before that. So the stage before that was, I said, we just need to get some information out to residents about making them think about the environment a bit more. So I started working with them to do a series of articles in the parish magazine. So I'm not a, hopefully that will go away if I do that. I'm not an energy expert or a recycling and waste expert, but I do know about wildlife. So that was kind of my comfortable area to start with. So I did a first article about gardening for wildlife. I did a second, slightly edgier article about the fact that we've got a bit of a bird disease issue in the village, which is almost always from people not cleaning their bird feeders. You know, these horrible tumours on the birds. So I thought I'd risk putting something out there about that, and it actually went down pretty well. Something a bit lighter for the next one. So people who know me know that my absolute passion is moths. So I did an article about the more than 400 moth species that I'd recorded in my garden in the village, and some pretty stunning pictures of some of the moths from my garden to inspire a bit of that. And then that was the last one, which was just a bit of an update of where we got to. That's not particularly focused, is it? Is that quite hard to see? Yeah? Yeah, okay. We'll leave it at that. So at the same time as suggesting that we did that, so that was when I started to put some actions in to do a community survey to see what are people interested in, what would they like to do. And I've done a bit of that through my work in the past, and had some training about sort of how to do these things. And what was really clear for me was to not be, this whole process needed to be bottom up and not top down. It had to come from people who live in the village and not tell them what to do, because that never works. So I think it's in this one, hopefully. So we put a climate and nature survey out there, and this went out in the parish magazine, but it was also on the website, and everybody that completed it actually completed it online. So we asked them some really simple questions. So I'm going to try and just make that a little bit. That's better, isn't it? So waste and recycling. So not a load of drop downs and tick boxes and that kind of thing, just all free text. So what actions did they think people could take to help increase the amount of materials we recycle and reduce the amount of waste produced? So nice and easy. Section on travel, what would help you or people visiting you to take more journeys by active travel, cycling and walking, public transport, or to drive a lower carbon vehicle. We asked them just for any other ideas about lowering carbon and environmental footprint. We asked them about habitats and species. Really crucially, for the species one, we asked people what do you miss seeing? What have you seen? What would you like to see more? Not a really complicated sort of ecological bunch of questions. Just what do you want to see more of? Any other ideas about wildlife? And then we just gave landowners an opportunity to get some free advice on what they could do. Although nobody took that up, but I thought that might make some farmers fill the survey in. But it didn't. So I wasn't expecting we would get dozens of responses. We got 13, I think, in the end. But they were incredible. They were so broad and so creative, and some incredible variety of ideas from the same people. And what that did was, when we broke it all down, which was quite a process because they were very long answers to a lot of those questions, there was no word limit, was we ended up with about 142, we reckoned, project ideas from these 13 people that responded when you broke them down. So some people on the species one talked about, oh, we'd love to see more hedgehogs, more swallows, more this, more that. Well, that kind of, each one of those we treated as a separate thing. And we collated those and we formed a working group with me and a councillor and a few other people. And we formed those into a plan. So I think this is the plan. So we just kind of collated them all in a table. Oh, that's kind of gone off the edge a bit. Anyway, so we have some sections, and then this allowed us to kind of collate how many people had said certain things, so we could see where the real interest lay. So you can see around 11 out of 13, they didn't necessarily use the words parish recycling champion, but actually almost all of them said, we need somebody in the village that can help us do this stuff. Somebody that can be a real expert, can tell us what we need to do. So that was something that was really interesting, where some of those focal areas were. So we had a workshop. We got all those 142 ideas on post-it notes. We kept moving them around until they made some kind of sense. And what that left us with, which no, it's not going to. You can't see. So down this left-hand side, it left us with 4 areas that we could group everything into. So we had an area of waste and recycling, we had energy and carbon, access and travel, and wildlife and habitats, and everything could fit into one of those areas. We had 5 out of 140 odd that we had to reject, unfortunately, from the final plan because they were a bit beyond what a parish council can do, like develop better biodiesel for tractors and the kind of things that maybe are a little bit of a step too far. But only 5 got left out. And from that, having collated all of that, what we then proposed to the parish council as a group was that we wanted to create, initially we talked about creating an action plan for the parish. And we thought, well, that's just a bit too, it's a bit too governmental, it's a bit too top down. Actually, what we really want is a vision for the parish that we can truly say was formed by the people that live in that area. So we spoke to the parish council about that, and they said, great idea, crack on with it. And so what we've ended up with is a vision document, and I think if I go full screen on that, so this is our vision, and I was hoping to have a paper copy because it was printed last week, but they haven't arrived with the parish clerk yet. But they will be dropping, so one of these will be dropping on every doormat in the parish on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday next week with their parish magazine as normal. So this doesn't include everything, and I felt that was really important to inspire people to take this a step further and get involved. It had to be something that was easy to get your head around what we were trying to do. So there's a bit of an intro. The parish clerk found a slightly Bear Grylls photo of me on the internet. but I couldn't bother to give them another one. So there's an intro from me and the chair, which again, it shows that the parish council are backing this, and that introductory section says that. If you want to read this, if you go on the Rodington Parish Council website, this is now on there as a digital document, so you can all read it. And then we've got some nice sections with a bit of a vision statement. So first one, for people that can't read it, a parish where the species we love are thriving in healthy, well-connected habitats. So that's the aim. And then we just picked some of the ideas that maybe a lot of people suggested, or we thought would it be a bit more inspiring, some of the species that people talked about. So there's a couple of pages on that. We then got the energy and carbon section. So again, a parish where people are supported to lower their environmental footprint in cost-effective ways. And this was one of the things that really came from the parish council, was that they're very aware of the cost of living crisis, and they wanted all of this to kind of help people where possible with some of that as well. So that talks about the main areas in that. And then waste and recycling, a litter-free parish where people find it easier to reduce their own resource use. So there's already some litter picking that goes on, but making more of that, making more of recycling opportunities. And then the last section, a parish where people feel safe and able to move around without relying on car use as the only option. And then again, a number of areas within that we can develop. So that definitely doesn't show up that well as a digital copy, but one of the things that we've really wanted to major on throughout this is that this is the vision of the people in the parish. This, and I keep saying it, but this is bottom up. This is your ideas, not your ideas, but their ideas, and that kind of comes all the way through it. So it's also not a static process. So there's now a project ideas form on the website, and we're regularly going to say to people in the parish, if you've got new ideas, put them forward, and they'll go into the mix. And we formed a steering group, which obviously we've said to anybody can join. Made it as simple as possible. There's a form to fill in with your details to apply to be on the steering group, not apply, to be on the steering group. God, if we get to the point where we're turning people away, I think that'll be. But it says really clearly, we just would like you to come to the majority of monthly meetings each year. That's your commitment. If you can do more than that, we'll bite your hand off. But we didn't want people to feel like if they put themselves forward, they're going to be developing projects and taking every night of the week and that kind of thing. And hopefully, gradually, if people just come forward to help do the meetings, they'll start to help do the projects. So we've got a first project that slightly... No, I think it was suggested about 5 minutes after the vision was signed off. So similar... So I should say, actually, that my parish is in Telford and Wrekin Borough, not in Shropshire. But similar to the councillors that we have here, each ward member has a discretionary fund that they can put forward to community projects, and the one in our ward that our parish sits in, really good it hasn't been spent this year. So the ward councillor who's really supportive of this has given us a chunk of that to do a wildlife garden in the corner of the playing fields in the village, which will be starting to be planned tomorrow. And then we'll gradually start to work on other projects. So that's a sort of that's a whistle stop of what we've been doing and where we're hoping to go. So, any questions?
How many people are in the whole parish?
I guess about 400. I knew somebody would ask that. I think when we got the quote for printing this, I think it was 400 copies. Sorry, 400 households. 400 households. So I guess 1,000 people, something like that.
Have you seen anything developing already from this?
Yeah, definitely. So as we were doing it, we were actually struggling to hold some people back. So which was great. You know, it didn't need to wait for this to be finished. So certainly on some of the sort of nature elements, some of the parish councillors just couldn't wait and put a row of oak trees in and suggested some other stuff. The other things are going to be interesting. The non-wildlife things I think are going to be interesting because they need probably more expertise because they've got somebody that can cover the wildlife stuff. Yeah. Often it costs more. So if we start thinking about solar panels on the village halls, for example, there's a big cost. And so I think it's going to be up to the steering group to introduce things gradually. And actually what really clearly came back from the parish council all the way through this process was, we want you to suggest things that we can deliver in the first 6 months as soon as this process is finished. They didn't want to create a big stir and then for it just to go quiet. Yeah. So that's the next day, and it's budget round at the moment. There has been a decent budget put into the parish budget for this work next year. And obviously they're expecting us to develop funding bids as well.
Thanks, Tom. I see you have a picture of the River Severn on the front.
Yes, Rodin.
Is it Rodin? Yeah. I mean, just telling him what Claire was talking about. What are your plans for looking after the Rodin?
Yeah, so there's not a great deal that runs through the parish. It's a shortish stretch, but it sort of goes out one way into another parish and then kind of curves out into another one. There is some enthusiasm for doing that, and I live right next to that bit of the river, and it's not in a good state there either at the moment. And that's the upstream arable that's causing that from our point of view. Our sewage works is actually downstream of that bridge. So I'd quite like to think about doing some work on that, but I think there's a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that my background professionally, where I sort of started, is farm advice, so environmental farm advice, and my real hope is that this enthuses the farmers in the parish to come together. So actually, nobody tell the parish council what I'm about to tell you, but at the next meeting I'm going to ask them to pay for a pie and a pint in the pub to get all the farmers together to present this to them and say, what do you want to do? Because I've been told, although it's a bit of an arable desert where we are, I've been told that all of our farmers are really community minded in the parish, and that doesn't really get said if it's not meant. So they constantly chip into things that are happening, and so I think there will be actions that we can do that should have a positive knock-on effect on the river. I'm really hopeful. I saw a kingfisher in my first week living there 3 years ago, and I haven't seen one since, so it was a good start, but went downhill.
Yeah, I haven't seen one on the picture for about 5 years probably. I used to see them quite a lot.
Yeah.
I saw a kingfisher literally on my way here, about 100 yards downstream from English Bridge.
Put it in your pocket and I'll take it. I mean,
I was going to ask about the farmland, Tom. You sort of half answered the question anyway. Because obviously I know Rodington is completely surrounded by pretty intensive arable. And you said that you didn't get much responses from farmers in the survey. But from the people that did respond that lived in the village, was there much of a desire to engage with the surrounding farmers?
Yeah,
and see some improvements?
I think either half or almost half of the responses talked about better, more environmentally friendly farming, I think was the way it was generally phrased. Some really specific, so there's a real passion for hedgerows actually came out of the survey. There's big gaps in the hedgerows in the parish, and really obvious places where there used to be long hedgerows, and you can see they've been ripped up probably 30-40 years ago, so I think there would be a real passion for getting those put back in. And from doing this sort of stuff before, I didn't really expect that any farmers would complete one of these, but that doesn't mean they're not engaged. You know, only 13 residents completed one. That's not to say that that residents aren't engaged. So, so I think there'll be some real key points that will go down really well with the people that have got involved with this, but nice, easy steps to not say change your whole farming system, and planting a load of hedgerows and maybe doing some wildflower verges, I think will be something that will get very little opposition. And then I'll take my master plan of a pond in every field forward.
I think the pie in the pint is a great idea.
Yeah. Any more? Yeah.
I mean, first, I'm just amazed. I mean, people know my day job is with the Green Party and supporting councillors, which is mostly sort of top tier councillors, but some parish councillors. This is trailblazing work, Tom. It's fantastic stuff. You know, and I'm going to get Tom to present something to the National Council body for Green Party, because it's just fantastic. But my specific question, I was just wondering, I completely get why you would, 13 sounds great actually in a small parish, but I'm just wondering who they were and whether that was a bit of a cross section, or whether, or just demographically, whether you think you've got an engagement from all various different. Because I imagine it's a fairly wealthy community, but I might be wrong. There may be pockets which are not wealthy, and are people from different areas of the town, of the village involved.
Yeah, so we don't completely know who everybody that responded. So the way that we formed the working group to develop this document was everybody that had done a survey then got an email saying, would you like to be on the working group? So we know some of the people that responded. Not surprisingly, you know one of them. But yes, it has brought people to my attention that I didn't kind of know, and the most significant one was a farm vet that lives in the village. So there's some really good links to farming community possible through that. It wasn't all retired people, which is kind of what I expected would be the majority. I think most people are in their 50s that kind of came forward and did that, so they're working at the same time and were prepared to give a bit of time to doing this. So yeah, I think background-wise, really broad. So people were bringing, there was one guy that owns his own business, something to do with, I don't know, logistics or something, and that was great. So he had some sort of perspectives on transport and stuff like that. Yeah, so the breadth of backgrounds was what I was hoping for, and I think we got that.
You probably know, but you mentioned the solar panels. But isn't there a Shropshire company that will put solar panels on public and private buildings for free, and then gets its money back through the electricity going back into the grid?
Yeah, so Share Energy would be the people who would do it. So it's a co-op, Dave Green's involved, and they look for places where they can do the upfront investment in partnership, and then share whatever benefit there is. And I don't know exactly what their model is, but they are precisely looking at those sorts of options. So Share Energy would be the place to go. Yeah.
You don't have to pay up front,
right?
But the money that's generated from the solar panels goes to paying that back over a 10-year period.
It's got a lot more difficult since the feed-in tariffs were cut some years ago, but there is still, they are still finding ways of doing it. And I think especially when it's sort of large routes like the community centre potentially has, as long as it's facing the right way, then I think there is potential. So.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. I mean, I think it's going to be an issue on, there are 2 village halls because there are 2 villages in the parish. It's going to be an issue in Rodington Village Hall because it's a flat roof. So it's a bit more expensive to get propped up solar panels, and maybe somebody like that wouldn't want to go the extra expense, but that's very helpful to know. We can only ask, they can only say no. Yeah, so great. Oh.
I was just going to say, knowing
telling you, you know, that there are going to be outcomes of the, you know, the data gathering, but is this a sort of open-ended, let's see what happens, or is there a sort of end goal for a particular species or something you would like to see happen because of this?
I think there aren't any specific goals at the moment. I've got some, but I'm one person, and that's like really important that I don't sort of become overbearing of pointing to the things that matter to me. So I think a lot of it will be driven by who joins the steering group and where their passions lie. I suspect the waste and recycling bit's going to really take off. I think there was a real passion for that in the responses that we got, including food shares and all sorts of stuff. But you know, it's, as we all know, it's one thing for people to put that down on a survey. It's another when you say, can somebody organise this? So we'll see how that happens. I think it's going to be a constant work in progress. I can't see that. I think with the buy-in that we've got from the parish council, they will be prepared to put a decent chunk of money each year. They're putting a really decent chunk in this year towards making this stuff happen. So I just think it's going to be. I might find it hard to escape. Where have I heard that before? But yeah, I think ongoing.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Right, we'll take a break. So it's just 20 minutes to 4. We've got the room till 4:30. Hopefully the AGM meeting won't take that long. Hopefully you'll stay for the AGM. The refreshments, go out that door there in the kitchen opposite. Basically there are mugs, tea, coffee, fruit teas, etc., all out on the table. And on the left is one of these hot water heater things you can go out and stick a kettle on. So I think probably the easiest way is if people are just happy to help themselves to whatever refreshments they want, go and make themselves a drink if you like, and then perhaps drift back into here and, what do you think, 3:45? Guys, is that good enough time? Should do, yeah. We aim to start the full AGM at 3:45 if that's okay.
Just before we do start the formal AGM, we're going to ask everybody to take part in a bit of a cheesy photo call, which is why we've got all the placards, just because we need to do a bit of a press release around our parliamentary prospective candidate, me. The Lib Dems have done a really good photo, so we've got to beat that photo. Don't go away before you've been in the photo.
Do you want to do that at the start of after the break then?
Yeah, end of the break. Yeah.
End of break. Are people warm enough? Or? Yeah. No.
I had loads of instructions about this room.